Hello, people. Andrew here, talking about comics from a reader, collector, speculator, investor point of view, from that order of importance to myself. And today I'm talking about a 1988 series called The Weird, which was released by DC Comics, featuring a story written by Jim Starlin and illustrated by Berni Wrightson. I first knew of Jim Starlin through his work on Strange Tales when he did the Warlock series. I think I was more impressed by his artwork than the story at the time, although I've reread the story since and I enjoy that story as well. We'll get into that some other time. Berni Wrightson I first discovered through a magazine called Vampirella, issue number 63. He illustrated a Bruce Jones story called Jennifer. And it was very creepy, both in the telling and in the artwork, especially the artwork. And from that moment on, I've always liked Berni Wrightson's artwork because that really was creepy and ghoulish, but in a good way. They've reprinted that particular story a couple of times in color, but I really recommend that you see it in black and white. It has much more mood and atmosphere when it's in black and white. So when these two people got together and did The Weird, when I finally got a collection of this, I was kind of looking forward to it. I like, as I said, Jim Starlin as a writer. He went on, he did write the Infinity Gauntlet, the Thanos Quest, and Berni Wrightson's done some other ghoulish sort of artwork. So something called The Weird made me think something in the macabre genre, supernatural, that sort of thing. That's not what this is. It's more of a science fiction story. Basically, you're looking at, and it's a science fiction story that you've heard many times or read many times, and that's true with a lot of stories. The plots can all seem somewhat similar, but it's in the telling. So in this situation, you've got another dimension where you've got two species. They're energy species. They don't have a physical form. They're energy species. The dominant one, let me just get this straight, are called the macrolats, and the subservient ones are the zerolats. I don't care for the names, but that's the names that they have. And the macrolats, the zerolats live and die at the macrolats' leisure. They feed the macrolats, so to speak. And as in a lot of these science fiction stories, macrolats discover that there's another world out there that they can, take over, and they can zap and drain all the energy, and that just happens to be the DC version of Earth. So they create, or they're trying to create, a bridge to this world, and in the process, one of the Zerolats escapes through that bridge and onto Earth. And basically, we follow that particular Zerolat as it learns about Earth and it learns about humanity and what it takes about being human. Involved in all of this is the Justice League of America, because there's a superhero element about it. They're really secondary to this story, and if you actually removed all of their interaction with this, you would still get pretty much the essence of what the story is all about. They provide initially an opportunity to see the power of these creatures, and it is immensely powerful. So there's a conflict for trying to figure out how to deal with such powerful entities. Then there's the learning curve that they have, and with that comes the backstory of the conflict and of these creatures. And then, of course, there's a final wrap up where they're involved. But once again, there's not. If you removed that, you wouldn't get all this exposition. And you'd have to learn about the power a different way, but they don't have an ultimate effect on the end story. So it goes on for that. I don't want to get into too much of the details of the story because that would sort of give it away, and I don't want to do that. The artwork, as I said, is provided by Berni Wrightson, and it's good. I do like this. I think this is my favorite of the four covers, and I'll show you the other three as well. It just doesn't cater to what I consider to be his strengths, which again is a little bit more of the ghoulish and what have you. That doesn't mean that he can't do a good superhero story, and there are some very dynamite panels throughout, and it's a good story and it's good artwork to look through and to take some time just to pause through it. I just don't think it's his particular strength, and I was kind of hoping that with a Starlin story and Wrightson artwork that I would get something a little bit more on the supernatural scale, especially something called the weird. But as I said, that didn't happen. So this is the first one where they first encounter the creature, and there's a whole somewhat of a subplot going on where the Zeralat, as he's discovering Earth, and he finds that a lot of these aliens, they tend to like Earth, and they say, well, I don't want this planet to go because it's such a nice planet. And he starts encountering some of the people, specifically this young boy who's lost his father. And through the Zeralat, the boy and the father get a chance to say goodbye to one another. And again, that's part of what this story is about. A little bit about closure, a little bit about grief, about saying goodbye. It's about making a difference in someone's life while there's still the opportunity to do so. And that's the humanity part. And I actually very much like the humanity part of it, but it's a very small part in a 4-part series because there has to be a fair amount of superhero interaction. There's, I think it is in this one, or it could be in the next one. But there's a chase scene with Superman and the Zeralat that goes on for, I don't know, a few pages, and ultimately the Zeralat escapes. So the chase was just to see Superman chasing something through buildings and using some of his powers to try and track this Zeralat, but being unable to do so. So as I said, if you remove that from the story, it wouldn't have had any effect on the story, other than that this Zeralat has evasive techniques. One of the players in this particular story is a man that they call the Jason, and he has an interesting backstory as well. And again, it's a human backstory, and it talks about why he became the way he is and why he would be willing to help these macrolats take over the world, and what's happened to his head and how his mental state got to where it is. And that again is kind of interesting as well. But again, it has nothing to do with the superheroes, but it has more to do with characterization and understanding of humans and humanity. And then the wrap up issue as well, and we learn about freedom and sacrifice and commitment and saying goodbye and what have you. So, is it worth the read? Well, if it's a strict science fiction story, you're going into a blind, I would say no. There's a superhero element that, removes it from being a strict science fiction tale. And you have to be interested in superheroes to appreciate at least half of this series. So is it a good superhero story? And the answer to that would be no. As I said, the superheroes, they get a chance to strut their stuff and show their powers, but they're pretty much ineffective, and they don't have a lot to do with what's really being said through the story. So it's like a half and half type of thing, and the half about exploring humanity and what it takes to be human, that's, as I said, it's only half the story. So you're getting two halves. So who is this for, and is it still a decent read? It is a decent read. If you enjoy superheroes at all, and you enjoy science fiction, this is going to be not a typical smash 'em up, crash 'em up type of story. It'll be a little bit more thought-provoking, but not as much as I have read some reviews, and they give it a lot more credit for that than I do. I find that it has those elements, just not not as strong as some people might think, or as they do think, and it didn't hit me the same way. I do like it enough, but I'm not going to give it a hearty recommendation. If it was on a scale of 1 to 10, where would I place this? Probably about a 6. I would bump it up to a 6.5 or a 7 because it does have Berni Wrightson artwork. And even though it's not of the ghoulish variety, he doesn't have to always do ghoulish. He does people as well, and there are expressions, and he has the way things are lit, because he does like shadows, the angles, the expressions on some of the characters. It is all very good Berni Wrightson material. So I would pump that up. Interesting enough, both Jim Starlin and Berni Wrightson, just shortly after this, also worked on Batman the Cult miniseries, for a 4-issue miniseries, which I'll talk about at some other point in time. So obviously they liked working together. So not a bad read. Just it's not exactly what I expected, but it wasn't, as I said, not a bad read. As far as collectability, there's a lot here to collect if you're into anybody from the Justice League of America during that period of time, which would have been the 80s. The Superman, Batman, even Black Canary's in there, Dr. Fate. But more so if you're interested in Jim Starlin's work, or I think even Berni Wrightson's artwork is probably the premier aspect for a collectible, is to chase down all of his artwork. So it does have some collectability. As far as speculation and investment, the answer would be no. This is the first appearance, well, the first issue is the first appearance of the Zaralat, and he does go on to play a part in the Rann-Thanagar War in 2008, but it's just a blobbish sort of thing of energy. I don't think that there's any real financial potential in that character. This particular series, it's dollar bin. It's in the dollar bins somewhere out there, so there's really no reason to spend anything more than $4 or $5 for the whole collection. So therefore, I would not recommend it as a speculation or investment. Don't get it encased in plastic at even at a 9.8. There just won't be that kind of demand for it. So that's it. Just a little brief one about the Weird. Not a bad series, not the great series, but nice to see some Berni Wrightson art. Actually, outside of being ghoulish, it's good to see that. And the story itself is decent enough. It didn't knock my socks off, but it was fine. Anyways, that's it for now, people. We will talk later. I hope.